This is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
I remember saying Lorenzo doesn't have to win the game for us. It's a team event. Just take care of the ball, play smart. But it turns out, I think I was wrong. I think he had to win the game for us. He accounted for 220 of our 400 yards of offense. Watching the tape of the game, young man played very well.
Not many people get to experience what we're going to experience this week, and just have fun and just do what we love to do and then go out there and perform.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Welcome into what should be a great week here on Sports Talk, because as we leave September and head into October, the games get bigger, the importance of the games grows, and the intensity and the build-up, they reach new heights. And that's what we have this week. Clemson, Notre Dame, really enough said there. Not a matchup of top 10 teams. The pollsters not doing the Tigers any favors. They win at Louisville, they back them up. They don't play last weekend, they back them up. So they're out of the top 10, but still, really it's irrelevant. A win by the Tigers will put them in great position moving forward. They've got their future in their own hands if they can take care of business. South Carolina, with fresh legs at quarterback now, maybe some hope for the Gamecocks as they go to Missouri, a Missouri team that has been, along with Auburn, one of the surprise disappointments of the year in the SEC so far. Underachieving and offense statistically worse than South Carolina's, 119th in the country in total offense, and they're coming off a stinging loss at Kentucky. This is the game I think South Carolina can win. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for South Carolina to go into Columbia, Missouri, and get a win. I think it's a good matchup for the Gamecocks, at least here looking at it the first part of this week. We'll see if they're able to carry over some of that momentum that they created from their win against Central Florida. Phil Kornbluth and the Professor Tom Hayes with you from our downtown Columbia studios, along with the Steak Man, Graham Pope. Kevin McCrary, he has the night off. He'll rejoin us tomorrow night. What do you think, Pro?
Well, Missouri really looked pedestrian against Kentucky. You never know what Matty Mark is going to show up. He ought to make one of those direct TV commercials. But the key point for South Carolina, he has lost some receivers from last year. And of course, they don't have the pass rushers they've had the last few years at Missouri. But I still think to win that game, they still need to get some of the viruses out of the computer. And we saw that on Saturday when people think, wait a minute, we're not doing anything. I'm going to have to try to do something. And that's when Pharaoh Cooper fumbled that ball, because other players think they have to do something instead of just playing the role and playing the game as you were taught it. So they can shake some of those viruses out of the computer. They still need Brandon Wiles, I think, to get those tough yards.
Well, if they get him healthy and keep him healthy, maybe he'll get those tough yards. But I have a new feeling for the USC offense with Nunez at quarterback. Back in a moment. Ooh. Phone number here on Sports Talk, 800-956-7266. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com and on Twitter @SportsTalkSC. We'll open up the phone lines throughout the program tonight. We'll take your phone calls. Love to get your first thoughts on Clemson, Notre Dame. Clemson opened up as a 2-point favorite. I think the money was coming in heavily on the Fighting Irish, and the line moved to a pick'em at one point. Haven't checked it this afternoon to see what it's done. Check that for me, Steak Man, if you would, and let me know where it stands. Missouri, a 4-point favorite over South Carolina. So how does Clemson beat Notre Dame, and how does South Carolina beat Missouri? Do you feel better, Gamecock fans I'm talking to, do you feel better after Saturday about your team? Now, I know the first half wasn't anything to write home about, but that's why they play 2 halves. And the second half, the Gamecock defense, for the third time this season, 3 out of 4 games this season, the Gamecock defense has shut out the opponent in the second half. I mean, it's kind of strange. I'm telling you, when they get to the stadium, they need to take the defense on a 2-mile run. So when they kick off the game, they feel like it's the second half, because they're not awake in the first half, and somehow they wake up in the second half. And
then, they better be awake now, because they got another noon kickoff coming up.
That's true.
Pretty soon.
And then, I mean, I was really impressed with Nunez. How could you not be? Threw the ball much better in the second half than I think people would have thought. Put the ball on the money. You heard Spurrier talk about him, got his feet under him, set his shoulders right, but his athleticism. And this is where, if you're Steve Spurrier, you can't turn back to the other quarterbacks. You cannot even consider going to Perry Orth, and why he keeps bringing up Michael Scarnecchia and Perry Orth. This is your guy. For this year, think about this. Imagine Nunez, if he continues to develop, and I mean, he's just a true freshman who's played one real game, a little bit of another, and actually did pretty well in those spot opportunities that he had. You give him the ball now and you develop him, and you've got Brandon McElwain coming in next year, and a good chance to get Jake Fromm the year after that, or a decent chance. You can set yourself up quarterback-wise for the next several seasons until the end of your time at South Carolina if you're Steve Spurrier. So I like Nunez. Yes, he's going to make some mistakes. That was not a bad defense they were playing Saturday, a crummy offense, but not a bad defense. They're going to see a top 10 defense that's coming Saturday with an outstanding defensive end in Charles Harris. Now, their leading tackler, Kentrell Brothers, the linebacker, who was leading the nation in tackles, he got hurt Saturday, may not be able to play at this point. They also lost a tight end who may not be able to play against the Gamecocks. So they've suffered some injuries, but they do have Matty Mock. They do have Russell Hansbrough back at running back. They do have some tall receivers like they usually have at Missouri. They do have their weapons. The reason I think South Carolina can win is because Missouri's offense isn't very good right now. Mock's completing 51%. So I think South Carolina's defense will have a chance to match up well. And the question is, can South Carolina's offense sustain some drives against a very good Missouri defense? And they need to get Brandon Wiles back healthy. They need to get Debo Samuels back healthy and in the lineup and get some other receiving targets. Though, really, with Pharaoh Cooper and Jarrell Adams, you've got 2 very fine targets to throw to, and that's what Nunez did on Saturday. So, it's not as dire, I think, as people were thinking after Georgia. Maybe you just ran into a great team against Georgia. We'll find out this Saturday in Athens.
You won 4 out of 5. You won big time. But the key to Nunez, though, Corn, is something very simple. And I think the fans picked up on it. Was body language. He went out there and he acted like he belonged.
Well, he played football.
Yeah,
he played football.
Even when it was a busted play.
He threw a block to Spring Cooper. I mean, not just a block. It was a devastating block. He cleared the guy out. He's an athlete. And you give him room. You let him play football. You say, take the ball and go play. And that's what he did. That's what he did. And there can't be any turning back if you're Spurrier. You got to live and die with this kid now, because I think he gives you a chance offensively.
The only way you put another quarterback in is if you want for a series to bring him to the sideline to talk about a couple of things. That's the only reason you do that.
Well, he did that Saturday. He put Orth in there to throw 3 incomplete passes and then put Nunez back in there. I don't know. I hear what you're saying. Sometimes that can stifle a quarterback who's trying to get into a rhythm. So anyway, you look at South Carolina, good special teams play once again this past weekend, even though, Fry banged one off the upright. He did have a career best 52. Kelly is punting the air out of the football. He's doing a great job for him, and their returns have been pretty good, and their coverage has been excellent. So they got some good aspects to their team moving forward towards Missouri. I give them a good chance, and the line is respectable for a team that got hammered nationally after the loss to Georgia. Clemson and Notre Dame. Well, I mean, it should be a classic. I don't think the Tigers will fall on their face like they did against Florida State in a similar setting 2 years ago. I don't expect Deshaun Watson to complete a pass on like the first or second play and the reception be fumbled and picked up by Notre Dame and turn the entire game. And then, Clemson got in scramble mode against Florida State and just made one uncharacteristic mistake after another. Don't expect that from this Clemson team. You get a Notre Dame team, which is playing its backup quarterback, its backup running back, its backup tight end. So they're dealing with some injuries. Clemson is, except for Ryan Norton, I think they're pretty healthy across the board. So I like the Tigers at home, certainly. I like their talent matchup with Notre Dame. I like their defense against Notre Dame's offense. I don't see why Clemson doesn't win this game.
It's the old simple formula again. You turn Notre Dame one-dimensional. You get the lead, stuff the run, make them throw the football, and that'll be key. The other carrot dangling at Clemson is this. You've got all those Midwestern writers going to be in the press box. Impress those guys because some of them have influence on whether you get some big-time votes to get into the playoff.
Excellent point.
So you dust Notre Dame in front of some writers who normally don't visit Death Valley.
Excellent point. I tell you, they are hyped at Clemson. They brought everybody but the water boy to the interview session today. They even interviewed Tim Beret, who's the legendary SID, who is a Notre Dame guy, from the standpoint of that's where his allegiance has been his entire life, except professionally his allegiance to Clemson. But, man, the only thing I would say for Clemson, they're the first team to play Notre Dame since the Pope left American soil. Now, I don't know how that will play into their emotions, but I wouldn't want to be that team to have to play Notre Dame right after the Pope left.
Well, because the Pope left because he didn't want to see the beatdown.
Maybe so. Maybe so. Let's jump to the phones. We'll update some other news notes here in just a moment. We go to Dave in North Charleston to get us rolling tonight here on Sports Talk. Hey, Dave, welcome into the program.
How you doing, guys?
Good, man. We're pumped up, excited, jacked up.
I know. You should be. But I think Notre Dame's still going to win this game.
Because?
And being a South Carolina fan, I kind of hope they lose this game because we need a chance at beating Clemson this year because that's a good game whenever November 28th rolls around. And I like to see us win this time. I'm speaking as a true Carolina fan because I have faith in Nunez. And I told y'all from the get-go, it was Nunez. He was the best quarterback. And turned out he's more mobile. He reminds you of Connor Shaw now. He can throw the ball. Everybody was wondering, can he throw the ball? Sure he can. He don't throw gifts like Pierre North does. That guy North throws too many gifts like he did at Kentucky. Ran all the way back. I wouldn't put North in ever again. Keep Nunez and find you a good backup quarterback because that North guy, when push comes to shove and gets pressure, he likes to throw a gift.
Well, you're right. If you nailed it on Nunez. Again, he turned out to be in my action with the game in his hands. He turned out to be much better than I thought going in. That's why they can't turn back at this point. And we'll be back in a moment. And we're Sports Talk, and we're presented by South Carolina soybean farmers and their checkoff. Learn more at scsoybeans.org. Pork powered by soy. 800-956-7266, the phone number here on Sports Talk. We'll take calls throughout the program. We'll let you hear a little bit from Steve Spurrier and Dabo Sweeney, kind of a warm-up for a Talking Tuesday. Also, Deshaun Watson talking today. As I mentioned, they brought practically every breathing Tiger to the press conference today. Next week, as alluded to, South Carolina and LSU, October 10th, will be a noon kickoff. So the Gamecocks, that will be at least 3 straight noon kickoffs for them. That's what happens when TV views you as being inadequate. They put you on at noon. It will be on ESPN. LSU at USC, 12 o'clock on ESPN. The primetime games that night on around the SEC, Florida at Missouri, Arkansas at Alabama. The ACC for that weekend, Clemson and Georgia Tech, they're holding that game on a 6-day option. So we won't know until this coming weekend. The Friday game, October the 9th, NC State at Virginia Tech. Friday night college games.
East Carolina got Virginia Tech again.
Sure did. Nothing in prime time for the ACC on that particular night. I would imagine, should Clemson beat Notre Dame, that the Georgia Tech game would be the 3:30 game, would be my guess.
I agree with you.
The A 3:30 game. All right, back to the calls we go, and it is Chris up in Lancaster. Chris, good evening, sir. Welcome into Sports Talk.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Man, we're great. How are you?
Doing good. Just to comment on Clemson and Notre Dame, I am a Clemson fan, and I think we beat them 31-20. Maybe a little worse. I think our defense is stop them. We'll run the ball against them, and I think our defense will make them one-dimensional, make them have to throw the ball. I think we're a better team than people's giving us for. I know we've had a struggle here and there, but we're better than people think we are. And I'll hang up.
You base that on what? Because I mean, Louisville has been your only equal matchup from a test standpoint. And, I mean, you won the game, but people are obviously the pollsters and other pundits around the country, they feel like you didn't win it big enough.
I understand that, too. But anytime you play on the road, you're on the road in conference. On the road, I'll take it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I thought it was a quality win in a tough environment on a Thursday night, working on a short week. I mean, you had to overcome a whole bunch of stuff. And you had to overcome a couple of interceptions by your quarterback. Now, Deshaun Watson has got to play. Yeah, Deshaun Watson has got to play a cleaner game against Notre Dame. Notre Dame rolled up some big numbers against UMass after dilly-dallying with those guys. They had over 600 yards of offense. They had 2 running backs go over 100 yards. They're averaging per snap right now. The Notre Dame offense is averaging about 5.5 yards a snap. It means it doesn't take long to get a first down with those averages. 800-956-7266. All right, welcome back in Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Good to have you with us. Phil Kornblut, Professor Tom Hayes, the state man, Graham Pope. You know, Papelbon yesterday in Washington. What?
You mean
Papelbon.
the
Papelbon.
closer.
Yeah, Papelbon. That's the name I gave him when he was with the Red Sox. Papelbon, for all the blown saves. He did to Harper exactly what I want to do sometimes to the steak man. Just reached out and put his big old hand on his throat and started squeezing.
They hate talent. They hate talent.
Papelbon is done, at least for this year.
Well, it's only 4 games.
Yeah.
Plus, I didn't think he's going to return to Washington next year anyway.
We talk about a team that just disintegrated this year, the Nationals. Big NFL game tonight, of course, Packers and Chiefs. A memorable game in that the 50th anniversary of the Super Bowl. We match up the two teams that played in Super Bowl I. In case you don't remember, the Packers won. Super Bowl I and Super Bowl II.
Yeah, for people who weren't around back then.
We have 4 Super Bowl championships, by the way.
Oh, do you?
In case you're wondering. Yeah.
But at any rate, what the freaky thing about it was, back then the AFL and NFL had not merged yet. NBC had the AFL contract. CBS, of course, the old man in the sea, had the NFL contract, and even had opposing announcing teams.
Oh yeah,
you could watch it on NBC, watch the AFL announce, and you could tell NBC was really into it because, if I'm not mistaken, Kurt Gowdy had on the red blazer like the Kansas City Chiefs.
Hank Stram.
They were openly, cheering for the Chiefs. So it was interesting about not only of football teams, but the network.
Apparently, some of the Packers were so drunk the night before they could hardly stand up and play in that game. The star of the game was Max McGee, the tight end. He was hungover. He'll tell you he didn't expect to play. All of a sudden, I think the guy ahead of him gets hurt. He goes in there, catches, runs a post pattern, catches a touchdown pass from Bart Starr. 800-956-7266. Yes, thank you. I want to thank all of you who recognize my genius by being one of only 2 voters to vote Mississippi State to win the SEC West. Big win at Auburn by Mississippi State. And look, if they beat Texas A&M,
they won't.
They probably won't, but they might. But if they do, they get Alabama at home. They get
keep racking up the losses here.
They get the rest of their tough games are in Starkville.
The LSU beat them.
They get Ole Miss at home.
Where did LSU beat them? At home. Then they beat them in Starkville.
Well, they did, but I mean, they could have beaten LSU. They could be 2-0, and boy, that'd be the surprise of the year. But not to me because I picked them.
But then again, the Heisman Trophy winner will be in town in a couple of weeks in Columbia.
I don't know. Is the Heisman
guy.
Trophy winner going to be Fournette? Is it going to be Deshaun Watson? Is it going to be Chad Kelly?
It's Fournette. That guy.
Is it going to be Lorenzo Nunez? I mean, who's it going to be?
Fournette.
All right, back to the phones we go, and we go to Charleston Haywood. Hello, and welcome into Sports Talk. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are y'all doing?
Hey, we're doing great. Appreciate you calling.
Good. Absolutely. You were talking about you're talking about the Pick'em winner. I was the Pick'em winner last week. One of the few people that actually picked Ole Miss over Alabama. So
good call.
That was fun. But
good call.
Yeah. Well. I mean, I don't think Alabama, going on a limb here, but don't think that the SEC is what everyone thinks they are. And again, I'm a Clemson fan, so more about the ACC. But then again, I don't cheer for my conference like most SEC players or SEC teams do. But that being said, there was someone that called earlier, and I knew that they were a Carolina fan before they even said it, because they said, "Oh, well, I hope that Clemson doesn't win." I'm like, well, you hope we don't win because you hope we're not as good as the hype is, because you want to at least win one game this year, which is, I mean, I know that they beat UNC, I get that, but they want to beat Clemson, and I get that, but as a Clemson fan, I want USC to be a good team going into the game because I care about my whole season, not just one game. So I thought that was kind of funny. But also, on top of that, there was a cornerback from Notre Dame. I don't know if y'all saw this on Twitter. Said, "Oh, I don't think that Watson is a 5-star. Or I don't think that not 5-star, top 5 quarterback."
Yeah.
Which is fine. He might not be. But, if a player from Clemson had said that, Dabo would have been all over his butt because it's classless and you just don't talk like that. Wait to play on the field and see what happens. Because if you say stuff like that, you're just going to ruffle our feathers and make us even more out for blood. So,
well, first of all, thank you very much. First of all, Dabo, of course, has banned social media for his players during the football season, so they have no way. They might not even be aware of it unless somebody told Deshaun Watson about it. Think they're aware of it? And yeah, it's not a smart thing to do. How important is locker room fodder? How important is it? Is Clemson going to be any more fired up because of a slight because of a tweet from a Notre Dame cornerback about Deshaun Watson? I don't think so. They're going to be I don't see how they could be any more excited about playing this game as they are already. I mean, they probably would like to tee it up right now. Of course, Clemson hadn't played a football game in a long time, and they're anxious to get back on the field and play. And you wonder about that, Pro. On the one hand, the extra time gives them a chance to heat up, rest up, etc. But then again, you do have to worry about the time away and losing some of that cohesion and some of that timing that only comes by playing every week. And here's the other thing I want to say too. Clemson's hitting a very tough part of their schedule now. With Notre Dame coming to town to kick this thing off, you've got to they're going to put so much, and I know Dabo preaches every game is a season, one game at a time. I get that, understand that. But and I know, and the Grasshoppers know, everybody knows they're putting everything they got. It's Notre Dame. It's at Clemson. It's 8 o'clock. They're going to have as many big-time recruits as possible in their arena. They're putting everything they can into this game. Win, and it's great, and you're feeling great, and you move on, and it'll be no trouble getting ready for the next game. Lose, especially a close one, you got to get ready for Georgia Tech and that offense. And you got, 3 days to prepare. Even though Georgia Tech has stubbed its toe the last couple of times out, it's still dangerous. My point is, they're going to have to get back up in a hurry for a Georgia Tech team that's going to be coming in knowing that their chances of winning their division are starting to wilt, and another loss would certainly eliminate them. So it's a tough stretch. You got Notre Dame, you got Georgia Tech, and you got Boston College in succession at the Valley. So winning against Notre Dame will certainly help them in getting ready for Georgia Tech, because coming off a win, you're just going to have that much more positive feeling moving forward. Lose a close one, lose a tough one, then you got to get back up again. That's a trap game for Clemson. Really, either way, Georgia Tech game is going to be, and I know Dabo's going to do his best the next week to talk up Georgia Tech and say they're focused and ready to go, but that is your classic trap game for Clemson the next week.
Well, the schools are not that far apart when you think about how close Atlanta is. Quick drive to Atlanta and to Clemson. The key point is Georgia Tech always gets up for Clemson, no matter what the record is. But the key point here, Cohen, is I'm not so worried about Clemson winning the game against Notre Dame than I think about how that depth on the offensive line is getting very thin, and they can't afford to get a bunch of people beat up on that offensive line.
Well, Frew Morgan will be back.
Yeah.
And Gore's holding up, so far health-wise. They seem to be happy with what's happening on the left side so far. The freshman over there is holding his own. So it's going to be, except for Ryan Norton, and I don't think he's going to be ready to play this week. They'll have Ammon Lakup ready to help maybe with kickoffs, because he's back on the team now, able to play. So that's another little bit of a bonus for them. And they got things going their way. This is a game that they will win, I predict. Hey, stay tuned. We've got the Sports Talk High School Football Report, a service of Farm Bureau Insurance, coming up in our next half hour with David Shelton with new auto insurance rates from Farm Bureau Insurance. You could be saving a whole lot of money even if you've received a quote before. Rates are now more competitive than ever. Get a free quote today from your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. We'll also have for you our recruiting report coming up in just a little bit. A lot of interesting stuff for you there as well. 800-956-7266 is the number. Back to your calls in just a moment. Some important notes to update. Jared Allen traded to the Panthers today from the Bears, the veteran defensive end. The Panthers giving up a sixth-round draft pick for Allen, who at the height of his career, one of the most feared pass rushers in the game, ninth all-time, 134 career sacks. What else do I want to tell you about? Auburn has fired its baseball coach, Sonny Galloway, for cause, terminated with cause, according to athletic director Jay Jacobs, who's not said what that cause is. Galloway, 62-60 in 2 years at Auburn, got him to the tournament last year. He's denying whatever it is he's being accused of doing. And the source tells us this afternoon, former Clemson coach Jack Leggett indeed would be interested in that opening at Auburn if they were to become interested in him. We're told by the source that there are some auxiliary people doing some checking around for him, but he himself, we're told, he has not talked to anybody officially at Auburn. Auburn could do well to hire Jack, at least on an interim case, to help stabilize things in their baseball program. Tennessee basketball, freshman point guard Lamont Turner ruled academically ineligible for the coming season. And FCS coaches poll, Coastal Carolina remains number one at 4-0, followed by North Dakota State, Jacksonville State, Illinois State, and James Madison. Good to see my alma mater, Harvard, back in the top 25 at number 25. Always proud of the Crimson when it shows up in the rankings. 800-956-7266, the number. We go back to your phone calls. We welcome Raymond in Barnwell. Next up here on Sports Talk. Good evening, Ray. How are you?
Hey, Phil. How's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. Beginning of the season, I told you Clemson will play Ohio State for the national championship.
Ohio State may not.
I was going to say, you still think Ohio State will be there?
Well, hang in there. It's got to play out. But anyway, let me tell you, Gabo Sweeney, when he's given 14, 15 days to prepare for a big-time game, like bowl games and stuff, big high-power teams, he always plays out good and really shows out. Always prepares well.
Yep. Their bowl games recently have been very strong performances.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. When he's got time to prepare, he's always been strong.
Mm-hmm.
I predicted that Clemson probably beat them 34-17.
Not even close, huh?
No.
Yeah. Well, that kind of win would catapult the Tigers into the top. Well, you got to see what happens with other teams in the top 10. But with the game,
I don't think Clemson's offense has really played their A game yet. I think they've just kind of ain't a whole lot of teams ain't got a whole lot of film to watch, but they'll have a lot of film to watch after this Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they'll use everything in their arsenal this Saturday for sure. All right, thank you very much. We appreciate it. So I was going to say a win by Clemson, where they're sitting there number 11 in one of the polls. Of course, nothing matters poll-wise until the committee gets together in a few weeks and starts issuing the official polls. But in terms of the two meaningless polls, it would catapult them, I'm sure, near the top 5 because you're going to have some movement. Georgia, Alabama, somebody's going to lose there. If they beat Notre Dame, Notre Dame's going to drop. Ole Miss, they could lose, they could drop. So a lot of things could happen. Great weekend coming up. Great weekend in college football. Quickly, let's jump back to the phones. And it's Alan in North Augusta. May have to hold you over. Alan, how are you? Welcome into Sports Talk.
I'm fine, Phil. Thanks for having me. I just want to say I think this Clemson-Notre Dame game, that's going to be the hardest game Clemson has all year long. But I think Notre Dame's the most talented team that Clemson will play all year long. Their wide receivers are great. That Fuller, the number 7, he's a first-round draft pick in the NFL. And they've got their offensive line strong. We just got to – hopefully we can penetrate and not give the quarterback all day long, because as good as Alexander is, the wide receiver knows where he's going. So, I mean, it's going to be tough, man.
You know who their number 2 receiver is?
He's not, number 2 is his number. I know that.
And it's Chris Brown. I'm talking about in terms of receptions. Chris Brown from Hanahan is their second leading receiver. And he has emerged as a very fine player for them. We'll be right back. Thanks for the phone call. Recruiting coming up. All right, let's get to the recruiting report tonight. First of all, wide receiver Kelvin Harmon, Palmyra, New Jersey, made his official to USC over the weekend. He did not want to do any interviews until after his announcement on Thursday at 2:30 at his school. He said he didn't want to tip off anything about what he's thinking. North Carolina, NC State, West Virginia, Temple, Rutgers. Looks like USC, NC State are probably the top 2. I would say South Carolina's in great shape. He's been to South Carolina several times, camps and other visits, so certainly has a strong relationship with the Gamecocks. Dre Massey, former star quarterback at Malden. What a year he had in 2013 with the Mavericks. Incredible numbers. Now he's a wide receiver out in a junior college, Holmes Junior College in Mississippi, and South Carolina in the last 2 weeks has gotten involved with him and is very interested in making him an offer and bringing him in for a visit. He's got great speed, he said, 4.3, 4.4 range. Steve Spurrier Jr., G.A. Mangus have been in regular contact with him over the past couple of weeks. And he said that Junior told him that they'll offer him, but he wants to do it face-to-face and in person. So he's expecting a Spurrier Jr. to come out to visit him this week or next week. He said he's always wanted to play in state, and he said it would be exciting to get the offer. An offer would move them to the top of the list, he said. He does have offers from Memphis, Cincinnati, East Carolina, Missouri, Mississippi State, Iowa State, Appalachian State, Illinois, Georgia State, and Alabama is giving him some interest. He's been there 3 times, also been to Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Missouri, and Memphis. He is talking with the Gamecocks about an official visit for LSU or Florida. Grades are good, on track to graduate in December, 3 to play 2. Clemson, keeping in touch with receiver Jason Hopper from Lexington, has offers from Appalachian, Presbyterian, Charleston Southern, Newberry, and Gardner-Webb. Tigers see him as a player that is under-recruited. Because of their numbers right now, they can't offer him a scholarship. They've talked to him about being a preferred walk-on and seeing what happens from a scholarship standpoint. He did grow up a Tiger fan. He would be interested in that, but he says right now he'd prefer to get a scholarship from somebody and go that route. So he'd look more at one of the schools that's offering him a scholarship versus walking on at Clemson. And with that in mind, he favors Charleston Southern right now, where he's being recruited by former Clemson quarterback Willie Corn. USC commitment defensive back Marlon Character of Atlanta was at Auburn Saturday. He's now giving the Tigers strong consideration. Richland Northeast linebacker T.J. Brunson was at USC Saturday, remains committed to Louisville. Clemson target defensive back Tony Butler, Lakewood, Ohio, did not go to Arizona State over the weekend and pushing back his announcement date from October the 5th. In basketball, 6'10" Sadiq Keita, Philadelphia, was at USC over the weekend, really enjoyed it. Like the coaching staff, like Frank Martin, thinks it's a place he can play. Going to Temple October 9th, Providence October 16th, also considering Penn State, LSU, and UNLV. Top of the hour break. We'll be back.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
And we're back, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Mike is off tonight, celebrating the final week of the Major League Baseball season as far as the Braves are concerned. So he's celebrating by not showing up tonight. We're giving him the night off, but we'll finish up the Braves report later this week with Mike. Mick Mixon will be along later on this hour to talk about the Panthers' win over the Saints. The Panthers go 3-0, and he'll also have some insight on the trade, Jared Allen coming to the Panthers from the Bears. Had a couple of other recruiting notes I wanted to pass along. Didn't have a chance to squeeze it in. On Saturday, Clemson offered 2017 receiver Ortre Smith from Wando. 2017 defensive lineman Brayon Gaddy of Norfolk plans to be at Clemson Saturday. Clemson and Notre Dame are two of his favorite schools. Also Saturday, USC offered 2017 athlete Devon Hunter, Chesapeake, Virginia. He was at USC for the game. USC also offered over the weekend 2017 offensive lineman Corey Durden of Newberry, Florida. Clemson offered 2019 athlete Dominique Blaylock, Mookie's son, Marietta, Georgia. He also has a USC offer. Back to basketball, 6'2" shooting guard Malik White of Richmond committed to Providence on Sunday. After his official visit, USC showed interest but did not offer. 2018 shooting guard, 6'3", Trey Dooms, Ackworth, Georgia, plans to visit Clemson next month. Back on Sadiq Keita, I had to rush through that. Back on his visit to USC, talking to him and his assistant coach. Really enjoyed the visit, liked the coaching staff, sees how they use big men, sees an opportunity for early playing time at South Carolina. So the Gamecocks have a good shot, but he is going to go to Temple October 9th, Providence on the 16th, considering Penn State, LSU, and UNLV for other visits, but he's not sure he'll take any more after the Providence visit. Coaches from Providence were scheduled to be at his school today, and he does plan to sign in November. One more basketball note. Seventh Woods made his official visit to North Carolina over the weekend, and apparently it went extremely well. He has talked to some of the North Carolina website types and expressed, I guess, a great pleasure and excitement and joy in his visit to North Carolina with his family over the weekend. He's got one more visit left. He's been to Georgetown. He's been to North Carolina. He's got USC coming up. And talking with some folks today, Woods, from a family standpoint, it will be hard for him not to go to South Carolina. Family wants him to, what I gather, stay close to home because they're going to be where he is, and they're not all that interested in pulling up roots and moving to Chapel Hill. So that certainly works in South Carolina's favor. South Carolina's recruited him very hard. Interesting kid, though, for whatever reason, over the summer and now to this point with basketball season coming up, those who grade these kids, they've downgraded him quite a bit from where he was just a couple of years ago. Apparently, in their eyes, did not have a particularly good summer. Back in a moment. And we're back, 800-956-7266. If you want to join in, we've got time for more of your phone calls. We've cleared open the lines for you. You can get right through. What do you think, South Carolina, Missouri? All the conversation so far tonight's been about Clemson, Notre Dame, and all the Tiger fans are very confident. Very confident. We're going to take this one. And you want to say something about Seventh Woods?
Oh, yeah. You know, a lot of times we see the size of a player and we want to pigeonhole them. Seventh Woods, in my mind, just reading and watching highlights, I've never sat around and saw a full game of his, but this is just my opinion. I believe the kid is a scorer. He's not a point guard. Now, people will say, yeah, but Tom, he's only about 6'1". He's a point guard. No. He's a scorer. It's just like when Larry Davis went up to North Carolina, they tried to make him a point guard. He was a scorer.
Mm-hmm.
You let that guy score.
Except he was 6'4".
No, but here's the interesting thing about the situation. If you look into the future, PJ Dozier, if you look at his career and look at him, he's a point guard in a 6'7" body. You'll be surprised how many matchup problems you can create when you have an oversized point guard, but a guy who normally is smaller and with a lower center of gravity at your shooting guard, how tough it is on a guy taller than he is than to play with him, to stay with him. So if you got a matchup like that, that actually makes up some interesting, matchup problems for teams.
You're right about the being a scorer. He's got that kind of mentality. From what I've told, and I'm like you, I haven't seen him play in person. The question is, and where coaches are having a little bit of a problem, those recruiting him, is where do you play him? You know, is he good enough to be a point guard? Does he handle enough? Does he have the point guard mindset? Is he big enough to play the two guard spot? Can you put him over there? He is only about 6'1", and how much is he going to give up defensively, size-wise? Can you play him there? That's the problem. The other problem here, moving forward, if you're Frank Martin in particular, here is a kid who blew up after a video in the 9th grade went viral.
Yeah.
He blew up, and, of course, all of the recruiting gurus in basketball started drooling over him, and they pushed this kid up into what? The top 10 in the country, right? Remember that? Mm-hmm. Well, unfortunately for him, his talent has not lived up to that hype, and now they've readjusted him out of the top 50 and more like down into the 70s, I think, or maybe the mid-50s, something like that, but out of the top 50. Still good. Still a good – yeah, you're right. I don't believe in recruiting rankings. I think they're bogus as hell. But this is the world you live in recruiting, whether it's talking about on the radio or dealing with it in recruiting as a coach. And Frank Martin is in a situation where, okay, if you don't get him and he goes to North Carolina, it looks like you blew getting a great talent right in your own backyard. If you do get him and he comes in and he's not as good as projected and hyped, then you got to deal with a situation with a local kid not playing who had all this hype and this ranking, but he's not good enough. So, but I'm sure he'd rather roll the dice and have the kid and see if he can develop him and make him into a legitimate player versus the other way around.
Well, to see his athletic ability, he's good enough. Here's the interesting thing, Corn. You ask, can you play him at the off guard position? The answer is yes, if. And that's why you see, in my opinion, that's why you see Frank Martin doing some recruiting is. Yeah, you can play him there if you got shot blockers on the other end. So you get him to press. And the interesting thing about his athletic ability, he can be a shot blocker on a jump shooter because of his tremendous leaping ability. He brings, people look at his scoring and his leaping ability to dunk. You translate that to defense and pressure defense, he can be a tremendous defensive player out front against somebody's point guard. So used properly, this guy's athletic ability, he can play.
All right, back to the phones we go, and it is Bert in Union. Hello, Bert. Welcome into Sports Talk.
Yeah, it was Butch.
Oh, Butch. Butch in Union. Okay. Hey, Butch.
Yeah, and Foot, F-O-O-T.
Oh,
and
this is, wait a minute, whoa. Your name is Foot?
Foot, F-O-O-T.
Foot, as in something you stand on. 1 foot. Foot.
Yes,
Foot.
yes, sir.
Foot.
Yes, sir.
Your name is Foot,
Yes,
or that's your nickname? Your nickname is Foot, not
that's,
your real
that's
name.
my nickname.
Yeah, okay.
That's what all my friends call me.
Why they call
But
you
anyway,
Foot? Why do they call you Foot? I'm scared to ask. Why they call you Foot?
Well, I've been wearing a 13 ever since I was about 11 years old, and I just got stuck with it a long time ago. But anyway, Clemson talking about they're going to take it to Clemson fans talking about they're going to take it to Boston College and all that. But, you know, they haven't really played anyone this year other than Louisville, and they got lucky on that one. But the only thing they got going for this week and what the next 3 weeks, they play some good teams, but they're also playing at home. And it seems like their officials always kind of go their way when they're at home. So I know I'm going to get some criticism on this, but I don't care. And I got some great friends as Clemson fans and all that too, but that's just my opinion.
You just tell them to kiss your foot. Hey, look, that's the way the schedule lined up this year. You know, Clemson last year had to go to Florida State. They had to go to Georgia Tech. They didn't play Notre Dame last year. They get them at home this year. They go to Notre Dame next year. These things all even out in the wash. They got to go to NC State. NC State's undefeated, scoring a bunch of points. They got some other tests down the road. Now, you're right. They have not really been – Louisville was a test. I mean, that was a tough game on the road, short work week to get ready. I know they've got quarterback problems. Maybe they solved it now. They went back to Jackson as their quarterback Saturday, and they blew out Samford. I always want to get that confused. Samford with an M. So anyway, but this will be Tigers, show me what you got. That's what Saturday is. This is show me what you got. You're at home. You've had, it seems like a month to get ready. All the hype videos that they don't mean anything now. It's show me what you got, and we'll see. I think they'll be up to the task. I see no reason playing at home why they won't be up to the task. The one thing you've got to be concerned about is playing too tight. With all the build-up, the 8 o'clock kickoff, waiting for that flashback to 2 years ago in Florida State, that Clemson team played tight. They made some uncharacteristic mistakes from the very beginning, and it became a tidal wave against them. They just could not recover. And they cannot allow Notre Dame to come out and jump on them quickly. Clemson had better tighten up the kick coverage because that has been a problem. They gave up the return against Louisville. They gave up some returns against Appalachian State. If that didn't give you an indication of an issue, Louisville did when the guy took it back 100 yards. So they've got to shore that up because Notre Dame's got return guys that can take it to the house. Outside of that, though, I mean, I like the matchup of Clemson's offense against Notre Dame's defense. Clemson should not be they should not feel intimidated or any less against Notre Dame than they would against anybody else. Flipping it, the matchup on defense of Alexander and Fuller, when that occurs, that'll be an interesting. That'll be a great matchup. You're talking about two of the best in the country going head to head right there. But can Notre Dame block Clemson's defensive front? Can they successfully give the quarterback time to run their offense and look down the field for some of the deep balls they like to throw?
Well, for Clemson, part of their defensive package would be the coming out party of Mr. Gallman because Notre Dame won't get the football. I mean, if you turn him loose running the football and quite frankly, if I'm Dabo Swinney, yes, I know my quarterback can run. But Mr. Watson, hand that ball off. I don't want those behemoths from Notre Dame, hitting on my quarterback. He's got some tough games to go. I'd use that running game and just
you cut him loose. Listen, you cannot limit Deshaun Watson and his talents for fear of injury. You got to cut him loose. just looking at some of Notre Dame's defensive rankings nationally, they are 40th in the country in scoring defense, just under 20 points per game. In total defense, they're 42nd, 341 yards per game. Tackles for loss, 30th in the country at 7 tackles for loss per game. Passing efficiency, defense, 49th in the country, 115 yards per game. Pretty good in red zone defense, 10th in the country in red zone defense. So you get down there on them, they tighten up defensively. So it'll be a good defensive unit going up against Clemson. We'll see how the Tigers can handle that. David Shelton coming up shortly. Review of Friday night high school football. Back to your calls we go. And it's Hank in Columbia. Hank, how are you? Welcome into Sports Talk.
Hey, Phil, how's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing all right. The Seven Wood, that kid can play. Yeah, I know he's still. I was looking. He's still ranked in the top 50 of most of the services. I kind of looked at the ESPN and the Rivals had him in the top 30, 35. But he can flat out play. His situation kind of reminds you of kind of like the McElwain kid that's coming to Carolina next year. There was you listen to some of these recruitniks, and they have their mind set on certain dimensions. And there was one that said something about McElwain was the only thing that kept him from giving McElwain a fifth star was that he was 6'1" and he wasn't 6'3".
Mm-hmm.
But out there amongst all the elite athletes at the Elite 11 and at the opening, he looked as well as anybody out there.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
So I think that's what they was Seven Woods. He's a whole lot more than just that video. If you kind of watched him and watched him play, and obviously, even with him, he didn't look like he didn't belong with that group of 12 or 14 they selected to play up there in New York, which a lot of those were the top players. I just think if Georgetown and North Carolina are really pursuing you, you can play. And if he comes to us and he doesn't do as well, we could do a lot worse.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. Yeah, Rivals has him 35 right now. So you're right. Rivals has him 35. But he wasn't he like top 10 or something? Wasn't he like?
Well, I think that was early, like 9th, 10th grade year. I think most of the time he's basically been somewhere around that 17 to 30 mark.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he's really gone. I mean, I think that was an early ranking. But if you go back to look at those rankings, a lot of those kids that are ranked in the 9th and 10th grade, some of them, you won't even see them ranked their junior and senior year because they were ranked off of, some spectacular performances. I know I see that a lot in some other basketball recruiting. Those, best 9th graders didn't even show up at the end.
Well, again, I'm not one. Listen, I could care less about a rankings number. I'm actually just, basketball people I've talked to who have seen him have told me point blank that he didn't have a very good summer. And that in the eyes of the national analysts, his stock did drop. Exactly how much, I don't know. But I'm with you. Look, if North Carolina, Georgetown wants you, that should be good enough for South Carolina.
I'm worried about his winter. I'm not worried about his summer.
All right, back with you. Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. Let's talk some high school football. David Shelton of the High School Sports Report, Charleston Post and Courier, joining us here on Sports Talk to talk for a few minutes about the big games from this past Friday night. And I don't know which one. A lot of good games. Airport, that win over AC Flora, that was real exciting. Dutch Fork going over to Sumter, winning that ball game. I don't know. Dillon beating Marlboro County senseless once again. What stood out in your mind from Friday night?
I think those three games were obviously, I believe, probably the three biggest games. Burns struggling a little bit with Boiling Springs, maybe looking ahead to Friday night where they play Spartanburg, but maybe Boiling Springs is just a pretty competitive team. But I thought the Airport win was huge because I thought maybe AC Flora was the best team they had played to this point. And I think Dillon obviously now, barring major injury or just coming out really, really flat, they're not going to lose this year.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Marlboro County had the best chance. I didn't think Marlboro County beat them, but I thought they had the best chance. So I kind of think Dillon's going to probably run the table. Again, anything can happen. High school kids, you never know. But on paper, they should run through it and extend the state's longest winning streak. Again, if they do, they're still about 2 years away from breaking Christchurch's record. So that just kind of shows you what Christchurch did over the last 4 years or so was pretty impressive.
Yes. Speaking of Dillon, what did you think of Avery McCall's commitment to Coastal Carolina?
I think it makes a little bit of sense. I think some of the bigger schools have been backing off him a little bit. Coastal's going into the FBS, to play big boy football, and Avery kind of comes at the right time. Plus, it is close to home, and I think that was appealing to Avery and his parents. So, I think it's a good move for them, good move for Coastal. As they move forward into their progression into FBS, I think, with the more scholarships, I think you're going to see them probably start recruiting a little harder. Some of those guys that are, what we call tweeners, but and probably get some of those. I mean, heck, D'Angelo Henderson could probably play for anybody in the state in any conference. So, they already started with a running back, but Avery's going to do fine there.
Another team looks like they're kind of getting their legs under them now is Lexington, and they go Carolina Forest came to them, I believe, and they beat them 41-21. Looks like they're starting to find themselves a little bit.
Yeah, and I think the impressive thing is that defensively they're that they really played well against Westwood the week before, and then beating Carolina Forest, which has got a pretty good offense, a very balanced, pretty good attack. I think offensively they're always going to be a team that can find ways to score. They've got good receivers, good running back, good quarterback, but I think the defense has been the story for them. If they can play defense on a consistent basis, I think you're going to see Lexington, maybe make a run at something because, like I said, offensively, I think they're going to be good for, 3 or 4 touchdowns a game. And if the defense holds up, I think they're going to be right in that mix.
Right. And what do you think of Strom Thurmond, not just beating North Augusta, but handling them pretty easily, 35-13?
Yeah. That again, beating them is one thing, but putting it on them pretty good. At their new field with the turf and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was pretty impressive. I saw that game a couple years ago, and Strom Thurmond was really close to winning that game. So the level of athletes is not that much different, maybe depth-wise it is, but Strom Thurmond can play football, and I think that was a huge win for them to go in there and really kind of handle them, fairly easily.
All right, David, thank you as always. Enjoy the week. We'll talk to you Friday night. Should be another big one.
Okay, Phil.
Thank you very much, David Shelton, High School Sports Report, High School Football Report here on Sports Talk. Yes, Spartanburg and Burns coming up this Friday night just to add to our great menu of football coming up this weekend. Let's warm you up a little bit for tomorrow's Talking Tuesday. Some comments from Steve Spurrier, Dabo Swinney from their conference calls yesterday, beginning with Spurrier, reflecting on the win over Central Florida.
We got out of the game pretty much injury-free. Injuries from last week that may linger on would be Alan Knott, Brandon Wiles. That's probably it right there. But, I don't know if those two guys will get back or not. I think they're going to try to this week and so forth. But looking back on the game yesterday, I remember saying Lorenzo Nunez doesn't have to win the game for us. It's a team event. Just take care of the ball, play smart. But it turned out, I think I was wrong. I think he had to win the game for us. He accounted for 220 of our 400 yards of offense. And watching the tape of the game, young man played very well. Threw a lot of good passes and certainly took care of the ball well. And we were able to make enough plays, got some turnovers. Defensively, DJ Holloman with the 2 picks, and TJ Gurley had 10 tackles. So our 2 TJ guys had excellent games. Sky Moore also had 9 tackles. Very good game. Our kickers were excellent. Landon Ard kicking off. Elliott was 3 out of 4 on his field goals. Sean Kelly averaged 45 yards per punt. Got one down on the 1-yard line that Boozy Whitlow got the safety. So our special team play was good again. Another thing that was encouraging, we had no turnovers and only 2 penalties for 20 yards.
And more from Spurrier coming up tomorrow. Now, Dabo Swinney, Tigers have been off for a while, so he knows his guys are anxious to get back to work. Gave him a few days off end of last week, anxious to get back to work and get ready for Notre Dame coming up on Saturday.
We've had a good week. Obviously, it's been a little unique for us. I don't ever recall having 2 Saturdays in a row where we haven't played, playing on the Thursday night game and then having the open date afterwards. But, I think we tried to make good use of the time, got some guys healthy. I've gotten some work done just really on Clemson, trying to just improve our team and prepare for the long haul of the season, and then obviously getting to work on Notre Dame. But players were off Friday, Saturday, and today, and we're excited about getting back in this week and getting back to work. And what a great college football game that we have the privilege of being a part of this weekend. With Notre Dame coming to town and game day and all that stuff. It's exciting, and I know that we're going to have to easily have to play our best game to have a chance in this type of game. This is an outstanding football team that really, to be honest with you, there's not a lot of weaknesses with them. They're talented all across the board, and but we look forward to the challenge, and I know our folks here at Clemson will be excited about, hosting them. It's been a long time since Notre Dame has been here, and so looking forward to, like I said, getting back to work tomorrow. I think health-wise we're in a good spot, and hopefully we can have a good week of practice and put our best foot forward Saturday night.
Dabo Swinney from yesterday, and we'll have more from him tomorrow up on the hill up at Clemson. Talking Tuesday here on Sports Talk. Make sure you join us tomorrow night. Coverage of what Steve Spurrier and Dabo Swinney have to say, as well as others. Now, USC will bring some players over tomorrow as well. We'll have that on the website. And today, several Clemson players visited with the media. We've got some of that up on the website already, sportstalksc.com. So you can check that out, and we'll have more for you tomorrow. Dabo Swinney and Brent Venables, for sure, will be talking with the media up at Clemson tomorrow. When we come back, the Panthers, undefeated, and a rare in-season trade in the NFL with the Panthers picking up Jared Allen for a draft pick. We'll get Mick Mixon's take on that coming up.
Backs up, looking, calculating, sidearm throw, end zone. Greg Olsen got it. Touchdown.
And you tell him, Greg Olsen, you let everybody know. He throws his hand down. He looks at the crowd. He looks at the referee. He's looking for Mr. Hockley and said, now, that's a touchdown. Take that one back.
All right, the Panthers undefeated after knocking off the Saints in wet Charlotte yesterday and making news today with an interesting trade. We welcome in the voice of the Panthers, Mick Mixon, to Sports Talk. First, the game yesterday, Newton was really good, 20 of 31, 315, a couple of touchdowns. And, I mean, listen, you got Olsen. That's the guy you should be going to as much as possible. Maybe they are figuring that out, and Olsen's going to have a huge year.
Oh, he had a monster game, and Cam Newton, I think, was the best player on the field, and he had a very advanced game, a clean, efficient game, good decision-making. His running ability, his accuracy was on display. Corn, I loved how he varied his release points. There's this whole saw about throwing off your back foot. Well, this just in. Sometimes you got to in the NFL. You got to just deliver the ball. It's not every pocket is not clean. So I liked how Cam Newton just kind of fit the ball in, varying his release point on some different throws. And then we got the Ed Hockley thing after the game, and then the trade that you allude to. So it has been excitement city here around Bank of America Stadium.
What did you think of the running game?
Jonathan Stewart's having to work so hard. He's just having to bake every cake from scratch. I feel for him. So many times he's rerouted, but he's so gamely fought for every yard that he's gotten. I did think it was curious that we went to Cameron Artis-Payne to get his first regular season carry on a wet, misty day when if he had fumbled, the Carolina Panthers probably would have lost the game. I'm sure the coaches had some good reasons for it, but the offensive line's done a great job with their pass blocking so far. The run game still has a few areas for potential growth.
Defensively, shut down the Saints' run game, and I guess not having to deal with Drew Brees gave the defense a chance to do some things that maybe they wouldn't have done if Brees were in the game.
Yeah, I thought Luke McCown, not only was McCown passing the ball like Sammy Ball back there, but the Sean Payton game plan. You say whatever you want to about Sean Payton. Some people don't like him. He's cocksure. He's got that hat, and he's got a certain thing about him, but he can scheme and he can call plays. Had the Panthers taken the bait on that, see, there was a trap. The Saints set a trap for the Panthers. Come with more pass rushers. Had the Panthers fallen for that, I think their quick game would have worked even better, and some of the things they had planned would have worked even better. I think it sounds weird to say, but I like that Sean McDermott didn't take the bait on it. He continued to bring mostly four-man pressures and try to keep the Saints in front of them, and it worked. It worked all right.
When Ted Ginn catches the ball, he puts the fear of God into safety. So Mick, is he becoming more, you think, of a guy that can really open up a lot of things for the Panthers as long as he holds on to that pigskin?
I do, Pro. I told my broadcast cohorts off air, but prior to the Jacksonville game, I said Ted Ginn is going to have a monster, huge, unbelievable year. And they said, why? And I said, well, think about it. He's at the height of his powers physically. He knows what to do, still young enough to do it. Plus, he's irritated. He's mad because everybody's saying he was a draft bust. Everybody was saying that he's just a return man. He wants to prove he can be a top-level receiver. And, he did have the one drop a couple of games ago, but since then he's been phenomenal.
What about that pick by former Coastal Carolina star Josh Norman?
He went all Gumby. You remember Gumby?
Yeah.
Some of your listeners are too young, but he went sort of Plastic Man, superhero, stretched himself out, read the play perfectly. But he does it all the time in practice. He catches more Cam Newton passes in practice than some of the receivers do.
All right, what'd you think of the trade getting Jared Allen? Does he still have the motor to make a difference?
We'll see. He's got to pass a physical before it all becomes official. But I'm still in the building now, guys, talking to you, and there's still a lot of our community relations, our media relations, football coaches, scouts. The parking lot's still full. They've been working on this deal all day, and the whole building is electric. I mean, they're so fired up that they got Jared Allen getting ready to pull on a Carolina Panther jersey.
That'd be wonderful. Glad to get him out of the NFC North. Kuechly for this week.
Doubtful, but he could play. But I'm just sitting there thinking, you got a bye week after Tampa Bay, so why not go ahead and shut him down until October 18th and let him go west with the best possible medical report.
This thing that he's got more than just a simple concussion, huh?
I don't think so, but I just think that it's either that he's either not passing the neurological exams or they haven't been able to schedule it yet. From what I'm hearing, the last thing is he's got to have the independent doctor come in, and you know how it is sometimes to get a doctor's appointment. It can take a while.
Well, for you and me, not for a NFL all-pro linebacker. I think they get somebody in there in a hurry, but I hear what you're saying. Thank you, Mick. Mick and the coach will be coming up on their network shortly, and we'll be right back. All right, let me give you some final notes. Southern Conference Special Teams Player of the Week is Furman's Brian Ross. Made a key play in special teams to help Furman defeat VMI over the weekend. Blocked the punt, scooped, and scored from 5 yards out for a touchdown that tied the game. And let's see here. Big South Player of the Week, Charleston Southern running back Mike Holloway. He is the Offensive Player of the Week. Presbyterian defensive back Ed Britt, Defensive Player of the Week. And we put the Sports Talk Kiss of Death on the Citadel on Thursday night. Coach Mike Houston. Charleston Southern played extremely well, beat the Citadel at the Johnson Haygood Stadium. 3 in a row. Charleston Southern has won. That series is over now for the foreseeable future. And the SAC Players of the Week, Newberry's Alsteva Squirewell and Kyle Clark. Squirewell, Defensive Player of the Week, and Clark is the Special Teams Player of the Week. USC basketball announced tip-off times and television for all their games, except for a couple still to be determined. But a couple of times of note here. On Friday, November 27th, they're going to play Lipscomb in Columbia at 2 o'clock. That's the Friday before the Clemson-USC football game.
Yeah, Friday after
Thanksgiving. Yeah, 2 o'clock tip for that one. Good luck drawing flies. The Clemson game will be at 7 o'clock. That'll be in Greenville. Oh, my goodness. On ESPN3, that game can do no better than ESPN3? Yuck.
They may work something out. By the way, if you don't like Black Friday, that game may be good. Lipscomb at 2:00.
Alabama game, they've got 2 9:00 games. At Alabama on January 13th, SEC Network, and a home game against Tennessee, SEC Network, Feb 24. And the Kentucky game in Columbia will be a noon tip on February 13th.
Interesting.
So some times there. Most of the rest are your normal 7, 6, 4, whenever ESPN's producers get out of bed and decide they want you to play at a particular time. They just kind of throw a dart at a dartboard. And let's see what else. I wanted to mention an email into us from this is from Red talking about South Carolina and their win. Jury's still out on the D. Massive hits, but against a subpar offense. Make no mistake, UCF was fired up heading to the half, but we crushed them in the second half. What does that mean? I don't know. But we head to Mizzou with confidence. Mizzou is going to be angry, and hopefully can make it a 4-quarter game. Our offensive line and secondary will determine the game. Wiles being available is important. Insights from Red. I think it will be a 4th-quarter game. I think it'll go right down to the wire. I think Missouri's place kicker is going to hit the upright on the final play of the game, and South Carolina's going to win.
Do you think they're going to finally let Whitlow start at the other defensive end?
It's possible. I did like the way Whitlow and Blackshear looked as 2 young defensive ends getting their first meaningful time, and you got to give those guys – you might as well play the young guys that have the talent and get them out there and see what they can do. Talking Tuesday tomorrow, Spurrier, Sweeney, and more. We'll see you then.